What is going on, you guys? It is Motoziety, and today I have the CFMOTO 300 SS in front of me, and we're going to be taking it for a little ride. So you guys have seen this bike on the channel before. I actually did a first ride and review of this bike, but I didn't give you a full walk around of it. I wanted to take it out today, give you guys a little walk around, and also figure out whether or not this bike would be a good first bike for a beginner rider. So let me do a little walk around for you guys so I can kind of show off the styling of this thing. Honestly, one of the first things that stands out to me about this bike is the styling. The styling of the CFMOTO 300 SS is phenomenal. I think CFMOTO hit the nail on the head with this one. I think they did a really good job. So let's go ahead and throw a leg over this bike and kind of see how the ergonomics of this thing feels. Right off the bat, guys, this thing is really comfortable. It sits low to the ground. I'm not sure what the actual seat height is, but I can throw that in right here. It sits pretty low to the ground. I am 6 foot and I have a nice little bend in my knee here. Obviously, I'm wearing boots, but still, solid bend in my knee. I think this bike would be great for a shorter rider. I can't tell, but I would say someone 5'5" would probably have no problem flat footing this bike. Seat feels pretty good. You got a nice, comfortable seat here. You also have a passenger seat in the back, and you have this really cool carbon fiber styling right here. All right, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the key on so we can get a look at the TST display in front of us. Super clear LED display. I think it looks really good, and I think it would be good for a new rider who, hasn't had much experience with analog displays and, drives a car with one of these digital dashes. Pretty much every car nowadays has a digital dash. So having your miles per hour displayed there pretty clearly and your RPMs farther in the background is pretty nice. You have two modes that come standard on this bike. You have Sport and Eco. I'm going to start this journey off in Sport mode, and we will test the two out. I think it's great that this bike provides both those different options, although I don't think they are too useful, especially for a beginner rider. Maybe it would be nice for a beginner to just turn the power down in Eco mode, but in all honesty, this bike does not make that much power right off the bat. I don't think you're going to notice too much of a difference. I'm going to pull in the clutch, and you start this bike by pulling down right here. There we go. Now the bike is started. Super quiet. It's just a single cylinder little thumper here. I'm going to kick this kickstand up, and I am going to ride around this parking lot for you guys and just talk about this bike a little bit. So I got the clutch in. I just kicked it into first gear. Not a very nice little clunk there. The clutch is super loose, honestly, not my favorite, and the shifter feels a little bit wonky, but let me just ride this bike around the parking lot for you guys, kind of get used to it. Super light. This bike is super light. Feels really good, feels really light. And then we'll get this thing on the highway. All right, so I just shifted it into neutral because when you kick up on the shifter, it just feels like garbage, honestly. There's no other way that I can describe that. It is just, there's not a nice solid feeling like you would get from something like a Ninja 400 or an R3. It's just kind of sloppy feeling, honestly. The kickdown's a little bit better, but upshifting is definitely a bit of a challenge. Pulling in the clutch also feels a little weak. There's no real tension on it, so it doesn't feel like you're doing much of anything. For a beginner rider, this might not be a bad thing, though, honestly. I like to have a little bit of a stiffer feel on my clutch, but maybe a beginner rider wouldn't. Maybe that would help them out a little bit more. I think it may cause some issues with stalling the bike though, as let me bring the bike over here real quick and I'll show you what I mean. I just want to get in a straight. Let me bring the bike over here. It may cause some issues with stalling. I have the bike in first. I'm just going to let out the clutch and let me show you how far I can let this clutch out before the bike starts to move forward. That's almost all the way out. Yeah, you could probably adjust this clutch a little bit, but look, I'm moving forward now on my own. That is almost all the way out. Like, there we go. Now it's fully out. That was like maybe a centimeter away from being let all the way out. So it definitely needs a little bit more tension on it. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and do a brake test for you now on this thing. It's got some pretty cheap calipers on it. I'm not really sure what they are. I think they're just cheap Chinese calipers, but let me go ahead. I'm going to shift up into second. I'm going about 22 miles per hour. Let's see if I can stop. I am fully pulling in on my brake, and I went pretty far. I started braking right about there, and I slid all the way to here. So these brakes are not great. Yeah, they're not going to stop you if you need to be stopped quickly. So before we continue, I'm going to go ahead and change the modes on this thing. All right, I just changed it into Eco. You can see what the Eco TST dash looks like. Definitely a little bit different than the other one. You have your RPMs over here and your miles per hour over here now, and you have your little gear indicator here. You got your fuel gauge, your hot and cold, your little temp gauge there. Let's see. All right. So we're going to start our little journey here in Eco mode. I can already notice a little bit of difference in throttle response. But like I said, I really don't think you guys are going to notice too much difference overall. It'll probably just be, throttle response and top end. And like I said, it might be good for beginner riders to have the ability to turn the power down on this thing, but it's not a very powerful bike to begin with. So I don't really know how much that's going to help, but any little bit helps. So it's nice that this has that option, as something like the R3 definitely doesn't. And neither does the Ninja 400. We'll do a little speed run on the highway here. See how this thing feels. Oh, that clutch feels like garbage. Again, shifted it into neutral. Yeah, this clutch and shifter feel like garbage, guys. Yes, I'm wearing boots, but I don't know, guys. This clutch and shifter, I'm not a fan of it. And I think it might, it might not be the best for a beginner rider to have something like this where it's just, I don't know. If I was riding this thing around, I would not be sure that I was ever going to find the gear I needed to find. Especially first to second there. I keep finding neutral. Which, as a beginner rider, would be totally discouraging to me, and I think I was doing something wrong. So that is definitely not the best. This Eco mode still feels a little bit peppy. I'm revving it out pretty far, but it doesn't really feel slow by any means. I'm keeping up with traffic pretty good, which is a solid sign. Just really not a fan of these brakes. Coming up to the highway, we're going to brake. All right, it braked a little bit better that time, but still, I'm not confident in these brakes at all, guys, honestly. I am not very confident in these brakes. We're going to do a top speed run in Eco mode and see, how this thing feels when we give it a little bit of gas. I am not totally confident in the shifting, as I've found neutral 4 times now, but I guess we will find out. All right, green light, let's go. Ugh, this clutch just feels like garbage. 40! I have my head all the way back on this throttle. Yeah, the Eco mode is slow, guys. I was twisted all the way back on the throttle, and we are just going nowhere. Honestly, I'm not even going to attempt that, especially with these brakes, to get any higher than 60 miles per hour. But yeah, it's slow. I mean, you can, you know, get on the throttle, but again, it's slow. It's a 300. It's really not going to go anywhere. But let's see if it feels any better in sport mode. I'm going to go ahead and pop her into sport mode so that we can come back around this way and go ahead and test out the... I found neutral again. It's got more of a roar to it now that it's in sport mode. I don't know if I necessarily feel anything. I don't know if I necessarily feel any difference in power. Maybe a little bit more throttle response, but other than that, I'm not really feeling anything. Oh, I got some traffic here. Try to get on it a little bit. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely get around in traffic in it. Definitely a fun little bike, but I don't know if I could personally recommend this as your first bike, as a beginner bike. I think there's a little bit to be desired, and it really concerns me about the braking and everything like that. A lot to be desired there. Lot to be desired there, guys. See if we can pass this car. Ah, we barely did it. Even with my wrist fully back, it just really doesn't go anywhere. So if you're buying this bike because you want to be the fastest thing on the road, you're making the wrong choice. But if you want to buy this bike to learn on, I think it's a good start learning bike, but I don't know. Downshifting doesn't feel great either on this thing. If you're buying this bike, you know, if you're buying this bike as a beginner, I think that maybe for the first month it would be great. This would be a great learning tool for the first month, but I don't know how long it would last you, in all honesty, in terms of just overall growth and everything like that. I think, if anything, after a month or two, this thing might limit you. It does feel like a real motorcycle, but there's just something about it that makes it feel a little bit like chintzy, cheap, a little bit like a toy. I don't know. Like, I'm getting all of the same feelings of riding a motorcycle, just, I don't know, with maybe something missing. I don't really know how to describe it other than that, but I think for the price that my friend got this thing at, she got a great deal, and I think it really helped her to learn and everything like that. But for, you know, if you can't get a good deal on one of these things, or you can't find one secondhand, I don't know if I'd personally recommend it, honestly. I think that there's a couple other bikes that are better than this on the market, especially for beginners. And I don't know, I think we're at a point now where 300cc bikes just aren't it. If you want to buy a 250, 300, that's fine. Everyone needs something to start on. Everyone needs something to learn on. But for the money, I think you're getting ripped off. I think you could have a little bit more power with something like a 400, 450, or even the 500. And, you know, it might be a little bit more enjoyable and a little bit longer lasting for you in terms of your growth. That's all. Not hating on this bike. I think this bike is fun. I have a blast while riding it. I just think that it's missing a lot of things. The brakes are kind of, you know, the brakes leave a lot to be desired. The clutch is just garbage. Honestly, the clutch is just garbage. And, you know, speed, power-wise, it just doesn't have anything there. It's great that it has modes, but I didn't really notice a difference ripping it up and down. There was a little bit better throttle response, but in all honesty, that's not enough. I can barely get around this car right now as I'm trying to merge. It just does not have the power to be on the highway. This is a 50-mile-per-hour highway. It just doesn't have the power to do the thing that you want it to do, which, I don't know. It's a little bit concerning to me. Again, it's not a bad bike. It's just, it's lacking. It's definitely lacking. Style is great. It's great that it has modes. The TST dash I love, but power-wise, definitely lacking. Even for a beginner bike. Like I said, there's other options out there like the 400, like the 500, 450, whatever it might be, that just, you know, they're still low enough power that you can learn on them and have a good first beginner experience and also have some room to grow on them. All right, so what do I think of this thing after just riding it around for a little bit? I don't know. I'd probably give it like a 5 out of 10. It's great that it has modes. It's great that it has this TST dash. I think the styling on this bike looks phenomenal, but the clutch is garbage. It leaves a lot to be desired in terms of feel, in terms of performance. I was having a lot of trouble shifting. I got a lot of neutrals, false neutrals, that I just kept finding neutral. I could not get from first to second for the life of me, and downshifting just didn't feel great, honestly. Pulling in the clutch just feels like you're, I don't even know how to, it doesn't even feel like it has any weight behind it whatsoever. So really not impressed with that. And then the brake, it works, it does the job that it's supposed to do, but it doesn't do it in a way that makes me feel confident. I would not feel confident in the braking of this bike. Going anything higher than like 50, 60 miles per hour, I would not feel confident that if I had to emergency brake, that it would do the job correctly. Yeah, it really did not inspire a whole lot of confidence for me. I love the seat height of this bike. I love that it would be great for shorter riders. So if you're a beginner rider who is on the shorter side, I think this would be great for you. But other than that, I mean, brakes, rough, clutch, rough. And those are two of the most important things. I just wouldn't feel comfortable saying that a beginner rider should hop on this thing. You know, because we're all human. We make mistakes. A beginner rider might get a little too comfortable with this bike too fast, be out on the highway just ripping, doing 60, 70 miles per hour, and they pull on these brakes and they don't work the way they're supposed to, and they get an accident. I think that there are much better options out there with brakes that work, with a clutch that works, and that have been, tested. These CFMOTOs are solid bikes, and I'd like to see more of them. I think the 300 SS, though, is just on their lower end. It doesn't receive as much attention as their other bikes. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I had a lot of fun riding this bike today, and I'm super glad I got to show it off to you. If you want to follow me over on TikTok, here's the link. I also have a Patreon and a members only section here on YouTube. If you guys like my content and you want to see more, please consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps me out a lot, and I appreciate all of you guys. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I will see you in the next video.